All right, so I guess we're recording right now. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whenever you're watching this. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and that's Randy Cardoon. Yes, he is the man.
Yes,
It's hot. He's formal today.
I am formal. I figure this is our first opportunity to really have some fun as we move on to TV and
Yes,
TV in two different places.
yes, and we are doing our social best to stay separated. And we did that last night as well. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the car community has changed. It's had to change with the current situation. What a lot of people are tired of being cooped up and leaving their cars parked. The cars are getting lonely. I don't know, but so we took our cars out last night. I did two cruises actually this weekend. One in Santa Barbara on the famous State Street there, where we
Yeah.
just cruised up and down the boulevard. No one stopped. No one congregated. We just
Okay.
drove up the streets, waved at each other. I saw someone I knew from Santa Barbara area, and we made a couple of passes up State Street and headed home. So that was
Okay.
good. We got to see
Not
some
bad.
interesting cars. And then last night, your wife, my wife, and I all joined in on probably a group of maybe 100 cars that cruised the Southern California area specific section called Simi Valley. And
Right.
it was rather interesting. We were the last three cars to leave the parking lot, and it was interesting. Now, you and I have chatted. I started caravanning, as this may be, back in the days when I had a van, and the guy in the front had a CB. Everyone had CBs back then.
Mhm.
The guy at the back had a CB. Yeah, and the
Mhm.
guy in the front never left the group behind. They always
Right.
stayed together. If someone didn't make a traffic light, they slowed down and waited for people to catch up. The
Right.
Corvette Club I belong to now uses the same technology, although now it's handheld radios. It's not the CBs. And we keep the group together. And that would have been great, considering we had a string of well over 100 cars last night. But we all got stretched out, and you, myself, and Hot Rod Holly were the
Mhm.
last three vehicles in this cruise, and we were the last three that showed up in the parking lot at the end, where there was some social distancing and some not so social distancing. But
Right.
the majority of the people had face masks on that did get closed. I did walk up to a couple of people I know and say hello. I kept my bandana or mask on. Peg did as well. You and your wife had their masks on. There were some that did, some that didn't, and let's you know, we'll worry about them at another time. This is just about cars and getting close.
I was just looking to see if I had my mask on just to illustrate what we did,
Oh
but
yeah,
that
well I don't have
no,
that with me. Mine's out in my car.
no. Yeah, pretty soon, who knows? We may have to start wearing masks doing Zoom. But until then,
Yes, that's
until
true.
then,
I'll use some disinfectant on my computer so it doesn't transmit the virus.
yeah, it was interesting last night. And of course, we were running just a little bit late, like I do sometimes. All right, all the time. And so you told me, go past one of the streets and get off at a certain street. And so we did. And shockingly, you and Hot Rod Holly are right about a car or two ahead of us. And I thought, okay, well, that's cool. How fortunate. We were able to catch up. Timing worked out really well. Now, you mentioned that we hit some street lights, and I guess in a group of 100 cars, that is indeed a problem. What was amusing about this was because as we would make turns, we would just start speeding up, trying to catch up. It's
Yeah.
like the whole class was ahead of us and we were the stragglers in the back and we had to catch up. So here we are doing, just zipping along. I won't say what. I, to be honest, didn't look at the speed limit signs. I'm assuming that
Yeah.
we were slightly over the speed limit as we were going on. I'm not going to say what. I'm not gonna,
Yeah,
we were close.
We were close. You were behind me a good portion of the time, and we
Right.
swapped positions, but we would rapidly accelerate up to, but we
Yeah.
stayed within 2 or 3 miles an hour of what the posted limits were. Most of the streets we were on were posted at 45 to 50 miles an hour. So
Right.
we were clipping along at a pretty good pace, although the younger drivers accelerated even more rapidly than we did, and they pulled away, leaving us far behind.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing was, just to further illustrate this, I don't know if you're our age or of a group of age and remember Benny Hill.
Yep.
Remember that little yakety sax song they used to play every time
Yes.
Benny was running around, you know, Confusion? Well, that song started coming into my head after the first slow down, zoom, as we were trying to catch up with people. And it was just, and there were people on the side of the street, which was pleasant to see. Not a lot, I mean, a few really, but a lot of them were taking pictures and waving. And it wasn't really like a parade, anything, but they were just sporadic. But the funny thing was, here we were taking off again, and these people are like, you know, like this, trying to catch us, because at that point we were trying to catch up with everybody else. Yet we were also trying to stay on the right path according to the directions. So we could have probably cut a little closer if we had taken a shortcut here and there, but I didn't know how far away they were, either did you. And the most amusing part is when we were going up Tapo Canyon and we went into, I believe it was called Lost Springs. And then where we literally looked, it was well aproposly named, because the minute we turned on there, we thought we were lost.
We're gone.
It was completely full of a field. There were no signs of buildings. God forbid if we lost a car to a flat tire, we would probably die out there. Okay, maybe I was being a little.
Yeah, we had our phones. Yeah.
Yeah. So we finally got through there. We finally got to a newer neighborhood, and we slid down and ended up at the town center. But yeah, it was. I admire what they were trying to do. I really do, and I think under the right circumstances, it would have been great. But when you're like 4 cars that are straggling behind, and they're going to go, oh, wow, you shouldn't be straggling behind. Well, you know.
I didn't want to run the red lights. Yeah,
start making friends in the street commissioner's office,
yeah,
traffic commissioner's office.
The goal was to stay together, in my estimation, but you know, don't get a ticket, don't speed.
Sorry.
You know, specifically said, don't speed, don't do any burnouts, don't make a ruckus. It was supposed to be a simple cruise, showing the hot rods, getting out there, and you know, social distancing respectfully, but still doing a car event. And it started out right, but it's separated. By the time you and I got to the final ending place, which we got lost a couple of times getting to, even following the directions, my wife was the very skilled navigator, and she kept telling me where to go, which kind of.
And then she showed. Then she told you what roads to take.
Yeah. Whoa, the streets were alive. And
I'm sorry.
So, but we ended up at the final destination for this cruise, and there were probably at least another 100 cars there when we got there. We don't know how many cars got picked up along the way, and since we were the tail end, we didn't see how many cars actually started out in this, but it was a good 10 minutes before Holly and I got out of the parking lot. So once the cars started moving, there was a huge parade of cars, and it was a variety of cars. It wasn't just hot rods. It wasn't just muscle cars. It was a lot of imports. It was, you know, you had your brand new Challenger. There were new cars. There were old cars. Well, relatively new.
Let's face it. After 2015, they all look alike. Yeah. Okay. Tell me what the difference is. Tell me what the difference is between a 2020 and a 2015, except for maybe the driving lights.
$10,000.
Well, more than that, probably. Yeah. I mean, visual. I didn't mean pocketbook, but yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You made a good point, though, because it's basically newer cars, older cars, foreign cars, American street iron. There was all sorts of cars there.
Yeah, and it was great, and it was a variety of age groups, which was great. So this was to me, this was bringing the car culture together, which it really needs to be. We grew up in a different era, so the cars that we look to, the cars that we want, are different than some of the cars the younger kids want, because they didn't grow up with the cars we have. You and I both have cars from the 60s and the 50s. the kids don't necessarily assimilate or register with those cars because they never saw them except in magazines and on TV. So the
Right.
cars they grew up with, the Hondas, the Infinities, the Lexus, that's where they gravitate, which is fine because it's the
Yeah,
hot
it's nothing wrong
rodding
with it.
community. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the car is. You can
Right.
hot rod anything, and it showed. And we had a great group of cars out there. We'd really like to sit down and talk to people about this sometime, but under better conditions, we will.
Yeah, no, I think we will. And of course, you didn't want to bring up the whole thing about masks and all that. It was a little surprising that when we got there, that the cars were right next to each other. The social distancing thing was a little bit, and again, I understand from the car club standpoint, because what can you do? Short of, you're not the car police. You can't, or the police in general. You can't really. Um, I don't know how you do it really, short of making every other car or every third space not. You
Yeah,
can't put a car in there. It's hard to. I don't know how they would have done it, but it was just a little odd to see so many people without masks.
yeah, there
But
were usually the younger ones that didn't have the masks, which tends to be the thing that's going on nowadays in most places. They're
yeah,
finding the younger people are not wearing the masks. Uh, what the reasoning is, I'm not sure. I can speculate, but
yeah.
that's
No, but I just said it as a statement of fact. I thought it was a little unusual, and for the club, I think that there's really not a lot they can do, because I think what they were just doing is their intent was to put together a show just to get the cars out.
yeah,
And as far as looking back on it, I think they succeeded. The only
yes,
thing I would say is what you were saying earlier is like, okay, there's got to be a way to make sure we don't lose people. I don't think we were that far behind. And it wasn't because whether we were 5 minutes late or not, we caught up with you guys and you were there much earlier.
yeah,
So it wasn't whether you were late to the show, it was how many people got caught up by traffic. And that, I think, is an issue that all car shows are going to have to deal with as far as trying to recreate these cruise ideas, which I actually thought it was a lot of fun overall. I just, my wife and I just said, hey, it's
yeah.
an adventure. We're out of the house,
That's
you
it.
know, and
I like,
and it was
yeah,
fun.
I like the State Street cruise a little bit better, only because it was on a prescribed street. Everyone was on the same street. So it started at 6:30 on Friday evening, went until 7:30. Only 1 hour. We stayed for 40 minutes. We didn't stay for the whole hour. But because there was a prescribed time, there were no parking lots. It was going down State Street through the center of Santa Barbara. Both sides of the streets were packed with cars cruising up and down.
And they're
And
one
that
lane
was
each
cool.
way, right?
Yeah, one lane each way. It was more reminiscent of the American graffiti days, Van Nuys Boulevard cruising, the days when we were kids and we'd cruise the boulevard on a Friday, Saturday night, or what have
Yes,
you.
we did.
And this was more reminiscent of that. And that to me was cool. And you don't worry about spacing people out.
And how fast were you going?
Probably 10, 15 miles an hour tops at that time.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
exactly. I think
you know,
that's
it,
cruising.
that was cruising. And there were specific places you could turn around. It ended up at the pier on State Street where you make the U-turn at the parking area and everyone would head back on State Street. As far as the other way, well, you picked your street you wanted to turn around on and you made the turn, you came back. And it was great. It was not formally organized other than here's where we're going to be from this time to this time, come on out. And I believe
And
they're going to do something similar in Thousand Oaks, California, this coming the 2nd of May.
oh,
We're
okay.
going to try to go to that one as well. Maybe we'll do some lives. I know if you're on Facebook and you're a friend of Hot Rod Holly, she actually has some video she took as she was driving. Shows the back end
Yeah,
of our cars because she
yeah.
was chasing us at that point. And we were going through some beautiful canyon roads. Now, as a kid, I remember driving those canyon roads because it was before the section of freeway just adjacent to it was even built. I just
Right.
don't remember things being so green and nice. It was always dry when I was a kid when we went through there, but it was summertime when we would cruise through there. So this was an interesting cruise. The temperatures were nice. In your area during the day, it got up to 90, but in the evenings, it was 70s and comfortable. So
Is this the first time they've done that in Simi, or is
yes,
this, or
no,
okay?
this was the first time, and this was the trial run to try and get car guys and gals out.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I kind of akin it to, I don't know if last night you saw, Saturday Night Live did a show where they had everybody at home.
Yeah.
Okay. And the first time they did it, it was okay. They did a pretty decent job. Tom Hanks was in his own home, and they had everybody doing skits from home, and it was okay. It was not totally up to SNL that we've seen the excellence. Last night, they totally aced it. I mean, they learned from their experience, and they put together some great stuff and the effects and everything else. And I think they really did well. I look at that, and I bring this up because, the first time you do something, for example, our first podcast, our first Zoom podcast, we're talking about cars. It'll upload audio wise. I edited it yesterday audio wise.
Okay.
And so I think it's looking good that it's going to show up on Thursday. And then we're going to put together the video, kind of like what we're doing here. And the first time we did it, it was okay. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about backgrounds. I learned a lot about.
Yeah, I gotta get that.
It's okay. You'll catch up. You'll catch up.
I will.
And I think there was a lot to learn about how to get into the show. Oh, cut that out. Bob has discovered the background key, ladies and gentlemen. Bob back, ladies and gentlemen. Bob here. Well, you got half of it. That's good. So
That's right.
we learned a lot from doing it the first time, and I think, and we have Cold War Motors, Steve. What did I just learn his last name? God, this is what old brain will do for you. Anyway, Steve's on the show. So Scott Newstead's on the show. I don't know who Steve is. Scott Newstead is on the show. Who's Steve? Scott Newstead is on the show, and you're going to want to hear it this Thursday on Talking About Cars on radio.com and Canixton70.com. But when we put the video on, I think there's a learning curve, and I think that's kind of what my really long way of saying this is like saying, for the car club, it's a learning curve. You get better the next time you do it. You get better the time you do it after that. So I really looking forward to the creativity of what car clubs do to try and keep some semblance of normalcy going while watching all the safety stuff go on.
Yeah, and we will. And this is I guess our first trial balloon for GAAS. We'll put this up on Facebook. Obviously, if you're watching this now, you're watching it on Facebook because the only two people that are watching this right now are Randy and I.
That's right. And
so
I'm already learning. I'm already learning from.
Yeah, he knows what not to do by watching me. And so we're recording
the right
this.
names of everybody that's been on the show. Scott, not Steve. Yeah. Okay.
Hey, speaking of that, did you realize that when we were cruising, we passed by Steve, the shop we went to?
Scott? Oh, sorry, what?
No, yeah, Steve Stroke.
Oh,
we went by Steve's shop.
Yeah.
And that's where this cruise was kind of neat. And one of the other supporters of GAAS, Service Tech, I just realized as we were driving by, because isn't that Service Tech? They're right down the street from Steve Stroke. So we'll have, and you can go back into talking about Cars Archives and check out, two-part talk with Steve Stroke, and it was funny. He is great. But you can go back into that, and I recommend going back and listening to this one because it was good. He's very animated and not bashful at all.
No, we asked him some comments about things that are topical of that era.
Yeah,
not that era. What
about
a month ago, 2 months ago, and we talked about some issues that were going on regarding cars and accidents and really what could be expected of treating a upgraded classic car with nowadays internals, and nowadays engines, nowadays suspensions, and what to expect of it if you decide to hot rod it around. He was no holds barred, and I think a lot of people like that.
Yeah, and it's something you and I have talked about is you can buy a lot more speed than you may have the brains to drive.
Oh,
and we see that.
Well, you may, But the thing is, and I'm not, you may recognize the scenario, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to mention people involved, but it's allowing people to drive that car, probably not having any experience
Yeah.
with that car. So if
Yeah.
you buy a really cool hot rod and you custom it out and you put in newer internals and engine and suspension and all that, and then you hand the keys to your buddy and say, yeah, let's go for a ride, and something bad happens, well, you kind of have to be aware and maybe not do that.
And that's true. It's something we see videos of all the time on Facebook and so forth, of high performance cars and low performance drivers. And someone runs out of talent just before the curb.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately it happens. It's always happened. It's just now more, I think, prevalent because you're buying a car off a showroom floor or a used car lot that has more horsepower than we had in race cars back in those days.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
today, a 12-second quarter-mile car off the showroom floor is not that uncommon. Whereas my '57 Chevy, which was considered a high-performance car in the '50s, ran 17-second ETs in the quarter mile, and that was considered a fast car. So
But what did you have under the hood? A 283?
283, 4-barrel. So it had the power pack. It wasn't a dual quad motor, but it ran 1790s, and this was considered a performance car of the time. Today, a 17-second car is a 4-cylinder, and you had to have the parking brake on to slow it down. So when the air conditioning was on, your stereo was playing. And you look at it now, you get and one of the examples I use in a lot of cases at the track is in 1965 and 66, the Shelby GT350 Mustangs were rated at just over 300 horsepower, 307, 309, and that was in street trim. Today, you walk into a Ford dealer, you buy a 4-cylinder Mustang that will stop, turn, and cool you a lot better than that GT350 did, and it has 311 horsepower. It's got more horsepower out of a 4-cylinder, and it's faster. So you put those things together and you look at what has come about in the automotive industry over the last 50 years when we were teenagers, back even before that. No, we weren't before that. But you go back to when we were teenagers, and the horsepower wars have never stopped. They slowed down for a while, but man, the technology today, they really caught up.
And speaking of slowdown, you were talking about cruising and how you could get, so much to the mile per gallon of gas and all that. Well, back in our day, I remember back in our day, when you used to cruise down Van Nuys Boulevard, it was basically an hour per block.
Yeah.
So in other words, you'd get, and Van Nuys at the time is, I don't know, they didn't expand the road, so it had to be 4-lane highway, 4-lane road in each side. And you're going towards, let's say, if you get off the 101 at Van Nuys Boulevard and would creep your way north, it would take you a couple of hours to get to Mike's Pizza up there by Van Nuys and Nordhoff or
Roscoe
or Roscoe or whatever it was. And so you would go there, and occasionally you'd see cars steaming on the side of the street because their cars had overheated. And, you're waving at people and cars are honking and you're going real slowly. And you better make sure you got gas in that car. Otherwise, you probably won't even make it to your destination. So, we've kind of round circled it here, but it was quite an era. And the whole idea of big gas cars and what you can do now for that, for smaller engines and more horsepower, it's just crazy.
Well, even the V8s of today get more than double the gas mileage of the V8s of our day.
Oh yeah.
We talk about that. You've got a Challenger with a Hemi. Your Hemi probably gets over 20 miles per gallon. The original Hemi wouldn't pass a gas station.
Right. And keep in mind the Hemis of today, especially Chrysler's Hemis, and I believe some of the GMs might be the same, or some of the Fords might be the same, but I'm not sure. The Hemi, for example, if you have an a RT, if you have what's the one above RT? I'm blanking on that now.
SRT.
SRT. That's what I was going to say. Okay. I started saying SST, and that's not it. I was only off by
one brand,
2 letters. Anyway, the SRT8. You're right. That's one of those. It's V8 all day, all the time. So your gas mileage is going to be lower than most of the time. The RTs have that situation where if you go into cruise control, it drops 4 cylinders. So they've got that mileage management system,
Yeah.
and you can get on the freeway, you can get 26 to 27 on a V8 Hemi doing the freeway with 4 cylinders. It's unbelievable.
It is, and I've got a Corvette as my daily driver, and going to Irwindale, I'll get 26 to 28 miles per gallon, cruising the highway at 65 to 70 miles an hour, 70 where it's posted. But I can remember I couldn't get that mileage out of my 6-cylinder Falcon back in high school.
Mm-hmm.
If I got 20 miles per gallon, I was babying it. And I drove with a vacuum gauge. I learned all the tricks on how to get fuel mileage. Because one of my goals when I was a kid is I wanted to be in the mobile economy run and drive to get the most mileage you could.
I remember those.
And so I would practice that. No matter where I drove, I had a vacuum gauge on the dashboard, and I would try and keep the vacuum up as high as I could to get the best mileage I could. Today, the engine does that for you, and we've got fuel injection. We had carburetors back then. There's fuel injection now, but it's electronic. It's controlled. It keeps metering the fuel as you're going to make sure you're getting optimal fuel mileage and performance.
What, are you listening to this? Are you listening to this witty repartee and also this solid information about automobiles every Monday through Friday morning at 11 o'clock? This guy, am I pointing to the right way on your?
No, I'm
this guy.
Yeah.
This guy is, of course, the host of GAAS, Great American Auto Scene, GAAS, and he, of course, will have all your eyes peeled to his show on Facebook, and he has all this stuff every Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss it. You do not want to miss this. So as we wrap it up for our first ever Zoom show on Great American Auto Scene, I think the bottom line is keep tuning in. We've just opened up a YouTube channel called Two Tired Guys and Two Tired Guys Productions, and we're going to be having new shows on there. These shows will end up on Facebook as well, but I think they'll also probably end up on Two Tired Guys Productions because we're really, and we also are going to, the new version of the Talking About Cars videos are going to show up there as well. So keep watch, and if you like what you see, we're also on Patreon. Yes. I hear that's a big thing, We're going to be have stuff that you can buy with our logos on it, like shirts, and do you have the shirt?
I do, but I didn't wear it today.
Well, just hold it up. Oh, you have it?
I got my sticker.
Oh, hold on a second. Hold on.
The call words of the older crowd. You've got gas.
Yep,
Hold
on. Really?
He's got his Talking About Cars shirt.
Hold on. I got my Talking About Cars shirt.
We also have a Two Tired Guys shirt.
That's what I was looking for.
That's what he's looking for. Mine are both in the hamper.
I got it.
I wore mine last night.
Okay, I got it.
You got it. Okay.
Okay, here we go. See, this is the back. This is that.
Yeah. See? Two Tired Guys.
That's it. And of course, then it has on the front, you have that. And we have Two Tired Guys hats that'll be eventually popping in. Yes. So we've got stuff that we're toying with, and we got some plans. So we'll see how it all works out. So keep listening, subscribe. Listen, it really helps us when you subscribe, and it doesn't cost anything. All it is basically we give you an opportunity to find out when our next stuff is up. So if you subscribe, that's how you find out. Yeah, you will be warned.
All right, guys, we're going to let you go. Randy's going to go get dinner. I'm going to do the same thing. My wife's cooking tonight, so I got to get down there.
Mine too.
Yours too. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching us. I'm Hot Rod Bob, Randy Cardoon, talking about cars and gas together again for the first time again for for the first time for you live.
That's
Recorded
right.
at an earlier time.
M&FM. Yes.
That's
For
it.
you live, recorded at an earlier time to make it easier for us, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
that's what
Yeah,
it is.
okay.
All right, guys. You have a
See you
great
later.
evening. Take care. Randy, I'll talk to you later.
All right, Bob.
All
See
right.
you.
Sign off so we can see your logo.
6 and 10, we'll see. Oh, wait. Okay. You say, and you've been listening to the Talking About Cars radio and broadcast network.
There we go. All right, folks. Take care.
Good job.
Okay. Oh, how did I do that?
I don't know. You turned off your camera. That's why.
Okay, now I got to stop recording. Here we go.
Oh, I thought you already did.